Well, hi. I'm going to start today. Sorry, I'm running a little late, but I want to read our opening prayer. I will do it in English today. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. Amen.
Amen.
Well, any questions about what we've been discussing so far?
Would you mind if I did my little poem first?
Oh, okay, fine, David, please.
Okay, thank you. Today, about in 1801, Jean-Louis Pons, a very famous French comet discoverer, discovered a small comet. And about 75 years later, William Brooks in the United States in New York discovered the same comet on its next return. It is not nearly as bright as Halley's Comet is, but it is on the same type of orbit, and it is back now, and I saw it last night. And for the poem today, to celebrate it, I'd like to read from Thomas Hardy's famous poem about Yell'ham Plain. It bends far over Yell'ham Plain, and we, from Yell'ham height, stand and regard its fiery train so soon to swim from sight. It will return long years hence, when as now its strange shift shine will fall on Yell'ham, on that sweet form of thine. Thank you very much, and back to you, Marty.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you. I just wanted to say we're going to hopefully have an easier time with sound today. Anyway, we left off in our reading. We're in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 22.
23.
And David, would you care to read for us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay, so starting with verse 23, 22. Ye shall therefore heap all my statutes and all mine ordinances, and do them, that the land whither I bring to you, dwell therein, vomit you not out. And ye shall not walk in the customs of the nation, which I am casting out before you. For they did all these things, and therefore I abhorred them. But I have said unto you, ye shall inherit their land, and I will give it to you to possess it, land flowing with milk and honey. Remember when I was growing up, there was this lovely song about the land of milk and honey. So I like it when it's mentioned. I am the Lord your God, who have set you apart from the peoples. Ye shall therefore separate between the clean beast and the unclean, and herein the unclean fowl and the clean. And ye shall not make your souls detestable by heart, or by fowl, or by anything wherewith the ground turneth, which I have set apart for you to hold unclean. And ye shall be holy unto me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have set you apart from the peoples, that ye should be mine. A man also, or a woman, that divineth by a ghost or a familiar spirit, shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones. Their blood shall be upon them.
Okay. Well, there's a lot packed into here, and let's one verse at a time. Any comments about verse 22?
Well, it's something that we've said before, he's reminding us that we must keep his statutes. And but it's been said before, though, many times where it's repeated, and that's one of the traditions of Torah, is that important thoughts are repeated quite often.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Lynn.
That's Dan. You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted.
Okay. I'm interested in the concept of the land spewing out the people. That's the word in my translation. That it kind of gives the land like a spirit of something, or the phraseology sounds like the land is active in rejecting the people that live on it improperly.
It's a very good observation. It's not just the land. One of the things I think is interesting, you have, if you go back to Genesis, says that after each one of his actions, that it is good. Okay, so when he's forming the sea and the sky and the land and the plants and animals, every one of these are good. And then he gets around to forming man. And we know, we discussed in Genesis what some of the older Midrash has said, that angels said, wait a minute, God, this may not be the right thing to do about forming man. Because the rest of Torah is based on our problem as human beings and what we need to overcome to think of everything that was good was holy. And we still have to, if you think about where we are today, we still have a long way to understand this. So what Lynn is talking about, the land itself is holy. And God is saying that. Yes, Michael. Yes, Michael.
I think is the land for the people, or are the people for the land? I think the land and the people are in partnership to take care of one another.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And like any other partnership, if you want it to be a good partnership, both parties need to be good to each other. Yes, Don.
Yeah, my question, I think the verse triggered similar question that Lynn identified with her question. I don't want to skip ahead, but we're hearing here that God warns the Israelis that the land, unless they follow his commandments, the land may spew them out. And the question is it the land, or is it the people living on the land already that will spew them out? Meaning, they're preparing to invade, will they suffer defeat when they attempt to take over the land? Or is it the land by becoming barren or through some drought or something? Is that what will drive them out, or what? But they are preparing for a military invasion here, and it's hard to tell whether it's the land itself or the incumbents who are living there that will drive them out.
It's probably a combination of ideas. I don't think it's one or the other. I personally would say it's both. If you if you defile the area within which you live, let's say you trash your home, you don't take care of it. You can say that because the house had a spirit, that you didn't recognize, that you didn't take care of, that you didn't honor. You don't then the house itself is going to spew you out. You don't deserve it.
Yes, but there may be people living in the house already that could throw me out. I mean, that's my question, is am I looking after the house, or did I not observe the commandments, and therefore when I try to eject the inhabitants, will they eject me? So,
Well, suppose there are among you in your family, there are those people that want to believe and follow the precepts. It's how to keep that house clean. And then there are those that do not want to keep the house clean. They don't care. Wouldn't the people who want to preserve the land kick out those who don't preserve the land or the house?
that bothers me a lot, Marty, but I don't want to take it any further. So,
Sure. Rabbi Mary has something to say.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question to the group. Let's think about what our land means, what land means to, and we're talking here a very specific land for the people, the land of milk and honey, whatever. And I'm saying whatever because I'm very cynical about this issue and what's going on now. This is my beloved country, so it's really difficult. So let's think for a moment, what does it mean, our land? I mean, forget about the house that's occupied, but let's think about the land that is occupied. What is a land for us?
I'll get the discussion started. It's a refuge. It represents safety, home, nourishment, and where you're going to eventually have your progeny.
Okay. Safety, that's
Yeah.
good. What else what's for you personally? What is, from sea to sea, that's the land, right? The land of milk and honey. My land is my land. Yeah, whatever. What does it mean? It's a place of safety. And why is it safety, Marty?
I think David has his hand up.
Yeah, I have 2 points that I would like to make. The first is a little off topic, and that is that I noticed that this particular section is from the portion Kedoshim, which I want to add is our beloved rabbis, bar mitzvah portion, and mine, both in April 1961. To directly address Rabbi Miri on this, to add a modern interpretation, I would like to use the word respect. That God is telling us that He's giving us this lovely land of milk and honey, but that we have to respect it. And if we don't, then we're going to be thrown out and vomited out and whatever. But if we do, it's going to be our land.
And
So I think the word respect summarizes this.
That's about our job. Yeah, this is our job towards the land that was given to us. That land that will cause us safety, as Marty said. Now let's sing, and this is a Michael question, because I know that eventually you'll go there, Michael. which I don't have a problem with that. But at the time, we did not have a land to go to. We were expelled from every other land. So Don, if we're talking about entering a house, it's because we don't have a house that will protect us. And in that city, they don't want us to live in that house. It was ours. We were living there. What did they do? They kicked us out. So we created another land that, yes, we have to respect it, but it's a land that was supposed to be our insurance. That this is a place, and I'm not going to use land, okay? I'm going to use place. That this is a place that we can feel safe, which we did not until this land became the land of Israel. So these things are something to think about. A land is on our feet, not on, we are on the land. The land holds us. Without the land, we disappear. We cannot float, or it's about sinking. And that's what happened to us across millennium. So here we have a land, and in the other places that we spoke about, it was a land of milk and honey, meaning that this is a good land, that stuff is there. Now let's think for a second. Do you remember when Moshe sent 2 spies to spy the land that we were supposed to get? What happened?
Go ahead, Gail.
Well, they came back and said, land of giants and all these horrible things, and then they went again.
Say that, Gail. Gail, it's difficult to hear you. Speak up, please.
Well, the sent the spies, and they came back and said it's a land of giants and all these scary things, and then they sent another troop, and of course they came back and said, I think there's a picture of them carrying grapes or something that I remember seeing it illustrated.
No, that's the second spies with the grapes. The first one comes back and there are these giants. He said, this is a terrible place. There are giants and it's a land that eats his inhabitants. Eretz ochelet yoshvea. It's a land that eats is the people sitting there. And what do we have here now if they don't follow the rules? I'm thinking just as I'm talking. Lynn, you're what did we say here?
The land that spews them out. It's again,
Yeah, and the word is vomit. Yeah. The land is going to vomit you if you don't follow the rules. And at that time, the spies, because they were killed, of course, said, this is a land that eats its inhabitants. So I think that we have to put these 2 things together and following the rules, and that, I think it's a beautiful way of talking about that land. And then he kills all these people and he sent other spies, and the spies came with what Gail was talking about, with the big, what do you call it, ripe of grapes. And it says, it's Eretz Zavat Halav Udvash. This is an Eretz, a land of honey and milk, of milk and honey. So again, to think about even today and in the modern time, that land became, as Marty said, a safe place for our people. But at the same time, the words that are saying in the Torah now is for me personally, this is a land that eats its inhabitants. This is a land that might puke its inhabitants if they don't follow the rules. And the rules are very Yeah, it's the rules are very clear. What do we have to follow? And don't think about sacrifices. Let's think about what we really want from our people to do. That if we don't do that, the land, the basis in which we are sitting, and it was a place that can provide us with these beautiful things, it's going to kick us out. I think that the entire cycle here is just very scary.
One of the things.
Marty.
One of the things that has been left out of the discussion, and I was hoping somebody would bring it in, is the word respect. We have discussed this before. Why all of the think of all of the rules and like that, a preamble to this statement that it's in addition to what the land can give us, it's what we need to do to nourish the land and to keep it going. Don had his hand up.
Yeah, and sorry, David said respect.
Yes, Don.
Yes, excuse me, Rabbi Mary, you said the Jews were kicked out prior to this. I don't recall anything in the Bible where they were kicked out of any place, because when Jacob and his family moved to Egypt, they did so because the land had ejected them. There was a drought on, and it's the land that kicked them out, and they found their way to Egypt to live with Joseph, and they weren't kicked out of Egypt. That was the Exodus.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. They were in a way being put to suffer and to kill the firstborn. What was the intention there? So don't use kick out, use kill them, make them disappear.
You use the words kicked out. That's why I was using it. So, but anyway, this is an important chapter to me because to me it's at the core of anti-Semitism, where there's an entitlement to the land, even though other people were living there. And then, as I said, I hate to jump ahead to another verse. We're not get there. We haven't got there yet. But nevertheless, it's exclusionary for the Israelites. We are the chosen people. We have a title to this land, and we are separate from other people because God has made us separate. To me, that's at the very core of anti-Semitism and what's being defended against for many centuries since. And I'm just trying to understand the context of that and where the entitlement comes from, where the exclusionary viewpoint of ourselves comes from, and how valid it is.
I think Gail wants to say something.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of that we're better than other people. It's a matter of hierarchy, and it's not a matter of hierarchy. It's just making a distinction between two peoples, but not above or below. In other words, all people are equal, but one is higher than the other. Are you following what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but I think you can't justify that context because I think it is a hierarchy. And I hate to say this, but
no, I don't think.
See, I feel a pain in my heart when I say it, but Hitler said the Aryan race was superior to all other races, and I feel a painful similarity in what we're reading here. So as soon as one thing is separate from the other, then one is in the human mind will become better than the other. That's the way the mind works.
Don.
Well, yeah, Yeah, you're right in certain way, but let's look for a second in modern history, because we're talking about long time ago, and we can talk about why I go to this country or to this country because this one has oil and this one doesn't have oil these days, this one has water. But it doesn't say you are better than other, therefore you have the right to this land. It said his deal is separated. And this is how the lands are today. You know, you have France and you have Italy and you have this and you have that. They are separate. And each one has a language and each one sits on a different land. The American history, which is quite modern, yeah, and you're right. In this case, in the American case, they were different than the Indians, the natives, the aborigines. So, but they felt that they have to do two things, either to kill them or to convert them, because my religion is much more better. You are a primitive place. So, my point is, what happens? How do I understand that separation? And I agree with Gail. It doesn't say that I'm going to separate you because you're better. I'm going to separate you because you are different. Let's start using the word different. And I want you to follow my rules. You are my people. I'm your God. Follow my rules. And he really doesn't want the people that are there to influence us or not. And yes, you're right, Don. They came and they kicked out the people that were there. Yes, with that, I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Now, at that time, it's because God told me that I'm separated and he doesn't want, or she doesn't, or they don't want us to become them. But in the history of human beings, unfortunately, but this is the tragic way that human beings have been living. For one way or another, we separated ourselves and move away those that were inside there. And Don, you are very, very right to be, I'll use the word angry instead of the one I want to say, about what's going on. You're right in that respect. But the separation, it doesn't say because, at least not here, it doesn't say because you're better. You are my people and you are my God. We have a relationship. And the relationship is very important because if you don't behave, the land in which you are conquering, and let's use that word, is going to throw you away as well. And now I talk too much, so please.
Let's move on.
Let me call on Michael and then back to Gail. Okay,
I see what we're discussing, that the land has to be a welcoming land. It's a land of welcome, and that's part of why God had given this. The God gave the Israelites, the Jews, this land, not to be to occupy it just for ourselves. He gave us an importance of it, and that is to welcome others who may think differently, but someplace that, as Marty started to say in the beginning, safe. People who needed to be safe. And similar here in the United States, and I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. Here in the United States, this is a Christian nation, simply because the majority of people who live here are Christian, and you can see it by all the churches and so on and so forth. However, this country provides for every religion to be welcomed and to practice their religion in peace the way they want to. And in a way, Israel is very similar. There's lots of different cultures. Not only it is a Jewish state, but they welcome. It's a welcoming state, and for centuries that's the way I see it was supposed to be, and that's what makes the Jews a welcoming people.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
I can't help but think about the Zionists when they first came to Israel, how they took bad conditions in the land and they watered it and they fed it and the desert bloomed. And to me, that's respecting the land, that's working with the land, and that's part of creating a nation. And they set an example for other countries on how to care for the land. There's a lot of, what I want to say, scientific progress that's been made in Israel due to having to do with agriculture that has influenced here. The drip system, for instance, is something that was developed in Israel. So treating the land well, literally the land, not just as a nation, but the land itself. And it pays you back when you treat it well. So there's that. And I think that's part of God's laws too. You're not a good steward of the land, it's gonna bite you in the butt.
that's right. It's gonna kick you out.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's a euphemism, not to be taken literally.
It should be a reciprocal
That's right.
relationship.
Yes, Lynn, please.
Yeah, I agree with Gail. The land is welcoming if we treat it right. It's not welcoming without conditions. And this concept is so important that it was picked up again in Deuteronomy. And it's actually the paragraph that's included in the second section of after the Shema in the prayer book. And I don't have a prayer book here, so I can't quote it, but it's like, if you treat the land properly and you behave properly, then the land will give its produce. And it's both physical, ecological, and moral. And if it's the Vayihim Shemoah, if you really listen and you do what I have said, then the land will nurture you, but it's conditional. But I just want to make the link with that, that the sages chose to put this in the liturgy as part after the Shema. Like, it is so central to our belief. And the core of that is here in Leviticus. I found that very interesting.
Gail is on to try to find that in the prayer book. But it is a very.
Ve'haya im. It's the second part, Ve'haya im. And if it was like that. But let me tell you something now. There is a group of people in Israel that still hold the statement, and you won't like it, Don, the statement that was made by God. This is my land, and I want it back. I don't want anyone to come and say, oh, get out of here. No, this group said, and I'm going to fight to the last person to get this land back.
You're
So
right.
in that regard, I want this because God promised me. And that's where we have a big problem. So the issue is, Dawn, in my mind, is to judge us based on what happened in the Torah or in our thoughts or in our stories. Because I'm telling you again, the issue of conquering usually has conquering today or in the close past It had to do with getting more sources and resources. Look for the dollar there. Or the issue of religion, you know. My religion, there are people in Israel and in Chicago and New York that say, you know, my religion is a God religion. Yours is. So it's a very difficult thing to see from our eyes today what happened or what the story tells us. On the other hand, you're so right. If I respect the land, it's going to give me food and the rain will come in its time, not just rain, 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 but where it's supposed to come, and you'll be happy. Then it will be a land of milk and honey. But in the meantime, think about in a metaphoric way, what does it mean? It's a land that eats its inhabitants. It's a land that because you didn't behave is going to puke you. Those are very strong Torah statements, guys. It's a very, very difficult think about it, even more than we are separated from other countries and God gave us this and that. See what happens today by these kind of statements.
Okay. We'll find some things a little later. The rest of the verses really support what Rabbi Mary was talking about, and what the discussion that we had it involves this, because if you take things out of context, you can run into the difficulties of saying, well, this could also mean the following. But if we read it in the context of the way everything is written, God is expecting, if you read verses 25, especially, in other words, if you're following all of the rules between clean and unclean, whether if you're following what God says is holy and acknowledge that, you're living up to your part of the covenant. And if we go back to Abraham, where the phrase milk and a land of milk and honey is given, is mentioned by God also, then you can see that by doing certain physical things, such as the Brit Milah, which also starts in the story of Abraham, and as it goes further, and now we're into the book of Leviticus. If you think of it as the birth of a people, and we've commented about this before. With the Israelites, if you follow these guidelines that God is giving us, then we will be entitled to a more spiritual contact with the land than the people who lived here before. And if you look at it from the standpoint of spiritual instead of physical, it may change the discussion a little bit, because it's what you feel with the land. If you ask a Native American what is most important in their lives, they will say the land, and it doesn't belong to anyone. You will find that in tribal Africa. You will find that in tribal Australia. You will find that in tribal Southeast Asia. The land is separate. We are passing through. The longer we treat that land well, the longer we, and we, with what God is suggesting we live by, then we will be able to live there by respecting the land and but it's the spirit of the land. It is not the physical land that has to always be thought of. Once we do that, then it changes the entire discussion. The land becomes part of us.
Reciprocity.
Sorry to disturb.
It's okay. So I think that it's another way of looking at this whole, it's written as a paragraph. So we're to take all of the thoughts, trying to unify them into some concept. Not just a word or not just a sentence or a phrase. So as a result, that's the design of a paragraph in a story. And so I think that that is what they're trying to accomplish in the people who wrote the Holiness Code. I don't know if it's a person, people, or what, or if it was copied from God's mentioning it to someone. I don't know. I wasn't around at the time, but I do think that if we think of the land having a spirit, and we want to connect with that spirit and maintain it, it changes the whole picture as it changes it to stewardship. A discussion about stewardship.
Yep.
Yes, Gal, you were going
Oh,
to say
just saying
something.
reciprocity. And
Yeah.
the term tree hugger comes to mind. I happen to be one. But you can literally hug a tree and feel something.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of people laugh about that and people make jokes about it, but it really is a thing. It really is a thing.
Yes. So there's a lot that we have. This is why it's important to read the things on one level, but then to also try to look at things from another level of discussion. And then it may make it easier to understand. Remember, we had Robbie Sherman here, who spoke to us about the problem of language in describing things. And in Judaism, we use stories to set the example. We have a list of do's and don'ts, but we have stories to say why these are important. The rest of Torah is going to talk about all the different things that happen when you don't follow the rules. Well, in essence, in one instance, the land will eat the people who are objecting to all these rules and regulations. We're going to, when we start to talk about the story of Torah, we're going to learn about it spewing people out when they stray too far, where the land no longer takes care of them. It can't provide them with the food, it can't provide them with shelter, safety anymore, because they haven't taken care of the land. Those stories are embedded in Torah. So, and if we go into the book of Kings, the book of Psalms, all the psalmists deal with this. All of the prophets deal with this. What we're discussing now, but they're looking at it from a spiritual standpoint. You start thinking of Amos. You start, which was part of the Haftarah that I had to read. and you start thinking in terms of Jeremiah, and like that, they're saying the same thing. You've strayed, you no longer belong here. The land is going to spew you out. In essence, historically, another nation came in to get rid of the Jews, to get rid of the Israelites. So the story will continue with this concept in mind. So I think that we have to look at another level. That's all I'm going to say. So anyway, it keeps saying you want to separate the clean and the unclean. And and as long as you do that, in verse 26, David, are you still there? Would you reread verse 26? If you follow all of this, then David will read verse 26. I don't know. David, did you find it? Oh, I think okay. Verse 26, Gail, could you read that?
Excuse me.
Unmuted, there we are. Is this a little better?
That's
Okay,
better.
26 says, "And ye shall be holy unto me, for I, the Lord, am holy, and have set you apart from the peoples, that ye should be mine."
Right. So if
You want me to
you do all this, then it's going to be pleasing God, pleasing the land, and you're going to feel a lot safer and et cetera, et cetera.
Friedman says, he uses the word distinguish you rather than separate you.
Right.
So again, there's no hierarchy here. It's just a
Right.
matter of separation.
That's a good way of putting
Difference.
it. It's a good way of putting it. So I think it's a very important aspect, because everything that we're going to read from now on is going to be based on this paragraph.
Mary, could you please translate the word pure and impure as used in English? The Hebrew, could you translate that?
The word havdil it's to make a difference. It's being not the same. We will say, yes, הבדל between this and this. There is a difference between this and this. That's how we use it. Yeah, or we'll use ein הבדל. There is no difference between this and that. It will be different, and the word separated could well translate it as well. It's going to make a difference, and it's going to be separated. There is an הבדל, there is a separation between the oranges and the apples. יש הבדל. There is a difference between Gail and Miri. There is a difference. And the word difference is something that we don't use enough. That go ahead.
I think the problem I've always had with the English translation, it sounds like something is dirty or impure or nasty as opposed to clean and good. And I think that's too harsh. But I think the way you're saying, just a matter of separation is easier to understand. But it's like kosher, it's nasty. You don't use
No,
it.
it's nothing to do with nasty. It's nothing to do with that. It'll separate you from other people, and that's what happens. I mean, it's think today. You have Jews and you have Italians and you have Protestant. Yeah, we are different. We are separated. We are not the same.
I was talking about the animals, though. They're talking about impure animals and clean animals.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not going to discuss that between this and that. I can use the words that Marty said. Let's look at these things in a more general spiritual way. I think that the issue of the animals mentioned here is just an example of what you're going to do by being different. You're not going to eat shrimps or pork because you're different. You eat. You're going to eat latkes. I mean, things like that. You're not going to have a Christmas tree. That's the difference between people, between beliefs, between lands. It's an issue that we have, that one of the presidents that we had said, we are the best. He did put an hierarchy, and I don't want to deal with global economy. And the fact of the matter is it is global economy because you have to move from Italian stuff to French stuff. But we are divided. And think of languages. Languages is a very easy way to differentiate between groups. In India, there are 2,000 groups that each one speaks a different language, and still they manage to put the land together. But it's a separate area, it's a separate language. And I can say, well, I'm separate from you because my God is different than yours. Yours is Apollo and mine is Akadosh Baruch Hu.
There you go. Any other discussion here? This is just one. Yes, Lynn, please.
Yeah, I'm sort of taking a wider view of the issue of separation, or my translation says being set apart. It's basically, I think, the idea is that we were not going to adopt the cultural practices of those people around us. Some of them were probably neutral, but the question is, if you start identifying with a cultural practice, then you do the ones that are really abominable. And so basically, I think like in the meta consideration, it's like, you are not going to be like these people. And and the whole system of you will do this and not this is that you can't do whatever you want, whatever your heart leads you to in the moment. There has to be an intellectual stop. Is this permitted or not? So there's a mindfulness call, to use a modern term, about this. You have to pay attention to what you're doing and where it leads. And I've laid it out in very great detail from God's perspective to tell you what you can do or what you should do and what you should not do. And one thing you should not do is identify with these people who do these fertility rites and all kinds of what we consider sexual immorality. And, a lot of it is around that, but it's just sort of like, even the neutral things will lead you to connect with others, because we're all human, right? It's easy to connect with others on a certain level, on a human level, but it is the wrong path for us. We have to be set apart, because it's not easy to restrict what we want to do. It's not easy to think, oh, I shouldn't really do this for myself. I shouldn't do this for another person, or I shouldn't do this to the land.
Lynn, I think
you're right, Lynn. And I'll use between separate. Let me introduce the word assimilate, because when you assimilate, you adopt the other people, and we are not allowed. We have our rules, and an assimilation today. Think about what does that mean to our people.
Michael, please.
Yeah, we don't, the Jews do not proselytize. We don't go telling or asking people to join us, to join our religion. It's because we respect everyone else's religion. They have a right to believe the way they want, and we respect that. We do not want to take away from them what they personally believe, their personal beliefs are. And we hope that we're respected as well. So I think that has to play a part in all of this. But anyway,
Yeah.
thank you. I have to leave now, Marty. So thank you very much. And I bid everybody a good Shabbos, a Shabbat Shalom, and a Shalom Shabbat. Thank you.
Take care, Michael. So, any other comments?
I think that Michael had a very good point. I mean, we are not coming to the land to make the other people who we are. And that's a difference when the Spaniards and the Brits came to America, especially the Spaniards. It was awful. Because my tradition and my laws and my God is supreme. So, but I don't want to assimilate with you either. I have my own constitution. I have my own rules. On the other hand, the assimilation is not that we force people to become Jews. It's not that the Protestant, well, maybe, I don't know. But we didn't do that. But assimilation is like a very fluid difference. The issue of like my daughter and my other son married a non-Jew. So there is that step that, it's flawed. So they have a Christmas tree. I say oy vey because I'm from another generation, but assimilation is a very powerful thing that's happening not by intention or force or.
Yeah. Yes, Don.
Yeah, it's been very profitable for me to study Jewish history a little more deeply because it turns out that although we claim not to proselytize, the fact is during the Roman period, when the Jewish population was pretty strong, we proselytized like crazy, trying to recruit Roman citizens and pagans as Jews. And the barrier, of course, for the men was circumcision. But nevertheless, there was super active recruitment for Jews until the destruction of the Second Temple, when the Jews were crushed by the Romans. But there was hundreds of years when Jews were actively trying to recruit members. And,
Don, what's your source?
go back to Josephus, go back to all the writers of that Roman period, and including Jewish writers. I can go to my library.
I didn't encounter any of that. Joseph Flavius is one that it's questionable, but let's say that he is okay. But all the right that you're talking about, I'm really not familiar with that at all. And that's why I'm asking you where you read that.
I can go get you a laundry list
Please.
of sources.
Please.
Yeah, sure will do. But I just, what's in the present is not necessarily what was in our history. And, the Jews suffered horrendous defeats around that time. And when the Second Temple was destroyed, that was really the beginning of rabbinical Judaism, I guess, when there was no place to go except in local synagogues. But it was a very volatile period. And as I said, recruitment was very active at the time. And which the Christians who were originally Jews, they continued that successfully. And we've obviously parted our separate ways since then, but it was all mixed up then. And anyway, I will get some literary
Please.
sources.
please, because I never heard that kind of thing. No, on the contrary, I know that, and today, the very Orthodox people don't want anyone new coming into our tribe. And they make all kind of chores, so that doesn't happen. So,
today.
and I did not hear on the temple time that was happening. So please send me some sources.
I'll email you.
Okay, let's try to move on a little bit here. And I find it interesting that in the last part, verse 27, it seemed in my mind, I think it's like an introduction to the next chapter, because it just seems a little out of place. It seems like, oh, I forgot to mention this, you know what I mean? A statement like that. But it would fit in with what we heard already. We've been hearing the same discussions again and again. And it's like reminding us, oh yes, just don't believe in the supernatural. Okay, I don't want anything to do with that. And because if you think about it, the supernatural is not going to necessarily be always for good. You may think it is for good, but it may not. And God is saying, be careful with this too. And we've heard that statement before. But it tends to also fit in with what is important for the priest, because the next chapter, we're going back to the priests. One of the things that I find interesting is, if you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, there was a method to the madness of the rabbi mentioning to me, Rabbi Norman mentioning to me, here's a book on the Dead Sea Scrolls. And he gave it to me as we were starting this, and it's taken forever to go through. I've just reached halfway through. But it really, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's a lot of the holiness code. But it's written in different words because it's written in a different time that this was supposed to be written. Or was it? Which excerpt are we reading in Torah? And which are we reading as codes of conduct for the community? Because they have, at that time, the Essenes and the Sadducees and the Pharisees were all different groups adopting different interpretations of what was in Torah. And so each one was saying, well, these are the right way to look at it. Okay, it was basically a big political conflict in my mind. They all read from the same book but came away with a different opinion. But I find it that here we're talking about the priesthood and Rabbi Plow starts talking about what the priesthood was about, and he speaks of Zadok, who is from the Levites going back to Aaron. They become the Sadducees. Okay, we say Zadok, but it's really Zadok and Sadducees or Sadducees. So that's the derivation of those words. And there's a lot in the Dead Sea Scrolls about the sons of Saturn. Okay. There's, for those of you who have that, I'm not going to read that, but what we're about to read has been, it also appears in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay. So anyway, so if we can start with Leviticus 21, verse 1. Okay.
Well, let me read first for you the
You just kind of read verses 1 through verse 4.
okay, but verse 27, which we haven't read yet, says, this is what you were saying, a man also, or a woman that divineth by a ghost or a familiar spirit shall surely be put to death. They shall stone them with stones. Their blood shall be upon them. And now we go to chapter 21. By the Bear and oil will show any more. The Lord said to Moses, speak unto the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say unto them, there shall none defile himself for the dead among his people, except for his kin that is near unto him, for his mother, and for his father, and for his son, and for his daughter, and for his brother, and for his sister a virgin that is near unto him, that hath had no husband, for her may he defile himself. He shall not defile himself, being a chief man among his people, to profane himself.
Okay. Any
Martin, excuse me, could someone else, not to offend David, but just a different translation, and if we could hear that.
translation that David is reading from? Gail, could you read that?
Okay,
Verses 1 through 4.
this is Friedman. And the Lord said to Moses, say to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, one shall not become impure for a person among his people, except for his relative who is close to him, for his mother, and for his father, and for his son, and for his daughter, and for his brother, and for his virgin sister, who is close to him, who has not been a husband's. He may become impure for her. He shall not become impure as a husband among his people, for him to be desecrated.
Okay, this is slightly different translation, but basically, you want to, if you're going to be in the priesthood, you're going to not be able to go to a cemetery. Okay, except to certain people that are closest to you. And because although it talks about a sister who is married, well, in essence, was no longer part of the family. He was part of her husband's family. So you have to stay away from the cemetery at that point. And I know some people who to this day, they're Levites, Orthodox, and they refuse to go into the cemeteries during the funeral.
Yes, I know that.
Did you want to add to that, Marcia?
No, I just know it.
Okay, yeah, Marcia just said that she knows that. So I thought that's an interesting way to start the rules and regulations for the priests. It's sort of separating the priest from everyone else.
You know what it might be? Life is for the living,
Touche.
you know?
Yeah.
So he's a priest for the living, not the dead.
Right.
So maybe that's what it's about.
I would tend to go along with that.
Yeah. I think, I don't,
Because you do not want worshiping, you know. Then you'll get people saying, I see dead people.
well, not for that, but you're a priest for living people.
That's
You're not a
right.
priest for spirits.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. I guess I can.
So I just found that interesting. Also, if you start to do that, you may believe that the dead have more power
Right.
and control over your behavior and judgment. I don't know. Any comments about that?
Well, Mary, seance is not allowed in the Jewish faith, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, the dead people are impure, so he should not touch impurity, and the death.
Impure, you mean different, not necessarily nasty.
No, it's impure. He cannot touch anyone dead. If that's what you were asking, I'm not sure. Yeah, Kohanim cannot touch dead.
Okay, Suzanne.
I just want to add on to Gail's, seances are not allowed in Christianity either. We're not supposed to talk to dead people. And I also believe that rule applies to Judaism too. I forget which book it is in the Old Testament, but someone conjured up Samuel to ask him something, and that was the big no-no.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
side. I'm going by what you mentioned.
Well, the only thing that you can talk about, I mean, it's not talking, it's reciting psalms until the moment of burial. So if you are in front of the death, actually, and I don't know if it's a requirement, Talmudic, or it's a tradition, it's to stay with the dead 24 hours, someone is dead, is there reciting psalms until the burial. But I don't know where it's written. I'm sorry, I cannot say that. Now, talking to the death it's just like, yeah, it's a different religion. It's a different, I'm going to, if Hannah in Samuel wants to have kids, she doesn't talk to her ancestors. She talks to God. So I don't believe that I recall anything about talking to the dead.
Yes, Marsha.
I don't understand this. When my son-in-law was very Orthodox, but belonged to many temples, when he died, somebody had to sit there, and I was one of them. They had different times, and I was wondering why certain people were picked and certain people weren't. I don't understand that.
To sit.
I don't know if certain people, what, Marsha? What did you say? Why, if certain people?
I was, when they're in a coffin alone in a
Yes.
place.
Yeah.
Before the service, they didn't want
Yeah.
that person to sit alone. And I was assigned, those are your hours to sit. Now, I don't understand.
You were sitting with the coffin.
With the coffin in the, and I
Sanctuary.
don't even know, the door was open. You
Yeah.
could walk in, but they said, just sit here. And this was,
Yeah.
told me what to do.
Yeah, I don't know about the alone, but I know that they have to sit, someone has to sit there, if possible, reciting Psalms. And the funny part is that when there is no one in the family to sit there, they pay someone to do that. So it's someone there, I don't know. It's probably a tradition and a superstition or something like that, but I don't have an answer.
One of the reasons for it might be that it gives that person time to say goodbye to the person who's died. You know, it's kind of a one-on-one.
Yes, that's a.
Yeah, but that's only when it's a person that's close to him or
Oh,
her. But as I said, it can be a stranger.
Yeah,
But, but, so that's a positive way of looking at it.
yeah.
However, a lot of what Mary said, there were a lot of superstitions over the centuries. And a lot of the things that we accept now are from the traditions that we brought here from Europe, specifically Eastern Europe, where there was a much heavier Jewish concentration. And as a result, you start worrying, you start thinking about different superstitions, the evil spirits. Rabbi Miri, what struck me, she says, well, we would read Psalms. Well, what is the Psalm that everybody reads in all Judaism and Christianity? Okay.
God is my shepherd. Yeah.
And
The other thing, guys, that occurs to me, Marty, is that someone, in Jewish tradition, the corpse of the dead, corpse, is holy and you cannot do much to it. And maybe people were afraid that someone will come and take it and something like that. But as you said, as I said before, I don't know. I really don't know.
that there was a superstition that an evil spirit could come from the body. And that was a strong belief in Eastern Europe. It was also held by Christians during that time, that period throughout medieval times and into today's world. And there were certain customs developed, no different than washing our hands before we enter the temple later, or after on leaving the cemetery, just in case an evil spirit was trying to get in to us. So these are customs. I'm not criticizing them. They're fine. But the selection of Psalms is saying, I am protecting myself, maintaining my focus on God and life, as Gail was saying, as opposed to death and what is associated with Sheol, the concept of Sheol. And I think that is, because that's mentioned in Torah, but I think that it is, it's a very important concept. However, although we say it, we set apart the physical body, we stay in touch with the spiritual side of that person. Okay, the soul. We are, think for a minute what we do. We think of that person's name, and then we recite the Kaddish prayer. We're doing, in essence, the same thing. We are remembering that person in spirit, but we are shielding ourselves from anything to do with the Kaddish prayer. We praise God, just like in the Psalms.
Right. Is there any, Mary, is there any place in the Torah,
No,
not in the Talmud, in the Torah, that talks about burial service?
I don't think so. I think it's Talmudic. And I think you had a class with Reb Norman about the traditions of burial, didn't you?
Yes.
Well,
Yes,
I
he did.
I didn't attend, but yeah, but there's nothing in the Torah about how to bury a person at all.
I don't think so. No, what we know is that Joseph's bones were carried with them from Egypt, that Sarah was buried in a cave, but not more than that. I don't think so.
But it's just a fascinating subject. Somebody had their hand up and I don't,
Yeah, it was me, Marty.
okay, thank you, Suzanne. Your John changed and I was looking, it was blank all of a sudden. Please, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if having a person sit with the dead body, was it possible that they wanted to make sure the person had died?
That's another one. That's another possibility, yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there have been, and people may have gone into a coma or something. So it was just a thought.
It's a good point.
And we in Judaism, we don't believe in coming from the dead, resuscitate. No.
Oh,
How do
resurrection.
you say? Resurrection.
Well-
Yeah, that's something that it's not in our literature or customs or things like that. We don't have that.
Well,
We have an Ezekiel that the bones are going to come together in the day of the Messiah, whatever. But we don't believe that we have to take care of this person because he might turn out as something else. So,
well, I wasn't referring to resurrection. I mean, for the Christians only.
no, I'm saying, yeah.
Was
No, you're right.
that maybe the person could have gone
Yeah.
into coma or
Yeah.
was unconscious or just something, and they wanted to be sure before they buried the person that the person had truly died.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that recently, Gail and Marty, we discussed that kind of issue of what does it mean if being in a coma and attached to machines is being alive or not. So anyway,
Marcia.
could be.
Whatever it was something that I remember very clearly. And I did not go into his room. The door was open, but you sat outside. So it has left an impression with me of the relationship that I had with him.
Mhm.
I was there with him. So it's very strong sometimes. You do things, you were told to do them and you do them, and then they stay with you forever.
Exactly. For some reason, the subject of Mel Brooks came into my mind because of movies and all of the antics that he would do concerning death. It just popped into my head. Disrespectful things with humor. Anyway, that's me. Right? I'm sorry. We'll get back to, we need to read the verses 5 and 6. Is David still? Yes, David's there.
Yes, David is here.
Okay.
David is here, as they say. And 5 and 6. So 5 says, they shall not make holiness upon their head, neither shall they shave off all the corners of their beard, nor make any cuttings in their flesh. They shall be holy unto their God, and not profane the name of their God. For the offerings of the Lord, made by fire, the bread of their God, they do offer. Therefore they shall be holy.
Okay. Gail, if you would read, Rabbi Friedman's, commentary,
On which one?
verses 5 and 6.
We only have something on 6.
No, read the verse.
Oh, I'm
Read
sorry.
the verse first.
I'm sorry, which one?
Verses 5
5
and
and
6.
6, sorry. They shall not make a bald place on their head, and shall not shave the corner of their beard, and not make a cut in their flesh. They shall be holy to their God, and shall not desecrate their God's name, because they are bringing forward the Lord's offerings by fire. They are God's bread, so they shall be a holy thing.
Okay.
Now we know who it was.
Any comments about this?
The first thing that popped into my head was monks shave the top of their head in the Catholic faith.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
Yes.
That's a direct opposite.
Opposite.
Yeah.
To distinguish, well, if you think about it, there are many things that they do different,
Oh, yeah.
you know, in the rituals and like that.
Exactly.
Christianity from Judaism. And that's okay.
Right.
I just-
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. I wonder what there was a Jewish population in the United States at the time of the American Revolution. And Dr. Rush, okay, who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, was an advocate of escarification, make cuttings on the skin for bloodletting purposes. Okay, and so maybe start thinking about the issue of blood and how it's holy, and you don't want to make a cut on the skin. I wonder how Jewish people felt about that type of treatment. I have never read anything about it. So but you have to raise that question.
Well,
With some-
it can fall into pikuach nefesh, in which, in order to save a life, you can do all kind of stuff. You can drive on Shabbat, and you can, break some laws. So maybe it is because he was a doctor, and so to save someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, scarification is not only related to its use in medicine. You use it in concrete mixing, in the laying of concrete, paving of streets, and anything else that is going to have some sort of surface or skin overlying. That's man-made, and they have different tools. Has anyone ever done farming with a rake or a plow? That's also called escarification of the earth. So, just as an aside, but so I digress. Let's get back to the book. But at the same time, we've heard this before. We've heard it that it's not only for all the people, but also for the priests. They must follow this rule. And but what about verse 6? Was there a commentary that you wanted to read about that?
Freeman just says that lechem, which is bread, he refers broadly to the food of the sacrifices, so
Right.
it isn't specifically just for bread.
Think about it. This is supposed to be there as part of the sacrifice to God, and it's to be consumed completely. And I guess that's the whole point. that is for God, not for. It's to be made, continue to be, kept holy. Don't try to take any of the fire to use at home. Don't try to take any of that bread to be used for another purpose. Any comments? Okay. I think, yeah, we saw verses 7 and 8.
Marcia read.
Mark,
Whatever you want to.
she doesn't want.
Well,
Okay, you've got, I don't, David, are you still with us?
Well, Don could read.
You're muted. You're muted, David. Go ahead. Gail, go ahead. I can't hear David.
Which
He's
verse
muted.
would-
race shall not be married. 7.
Verse 7 and 8.
I don't have glasses. Okay. Hello. They shall not take a woman who is a prostitute and desecrated, and they shall not take a woman who is divorced from her husband, because he is holy to his God. And you shall regard him as holy, because he is bringing forward your God's bread. You shall be holy to you, because I, the Lord, who makes you holy, am holy. And the daughter of a man who is a priest who will become desecrated to whore, she is desecrating her father, she shall be burned in fire.
Okay, stop there. Stop.
Whoa.
I was going to do that separate, but since you read it, that's okay. So, any comments about a priest marrying a woman, a prostitute, or one who has been previously married and divorced from another husband? And any comments about that?
He can marry a widow? Sounds like he could marry a widow.
It sounds like it could. Good observation. Any other comments? Why would that be inserted here? Or any possible reasons why it's inserted here?
Because she has been used already. I'm sorry.
Well,
Thank you, Mary.
yes, but in,
And the widow, with the widow, there is another problem. With the widow, when she dies, the brother of her husband needs to marry her. And so there is a designated person that marries her. So there is like a different type of woman alone. But grusha, one that has been divorced, doesn't have to be married by the brother or something. So it's a difficult thing to see, but yeah, it's difficult, especially to accept. But it's the issue of a woman that is virgin was in the old world a very important issue to the people. And they had to prove the night of the wedding, bringing the sheet with blood and stuff like that. So here is the opposite. They know that these two women are not virgins. So they were touched already. So maybe that's impure to the Kohen Gadol, to the priest. Maybe that's the case. I'm not sure.
I'm wondering if it might be a problem that the woman might have offspring. And what do you do with the kids? you know, if she was a prostitute, she got pregnant and had a child, if she was divorced and had had children by her first husband, what's the status of those children?
Well, the divorce, I don't know, I'm not sure. But with the prostitute is going to be a bastard, the kid,
Right, okay.
because it came from a woman who's not married. It doesn't have a father. With the children of the divorce, when she married someone, not the priest, I suppose the kids were adopted or something. I don't know. I don't know.
We've had a similar discussion before, but in a different context. We have mentioned in the past that there is a sanctity to blood. And there's also a sanctity to this man's seed.
Oh, okay.
If we look at it from that standpoint about the gashing of the skin, followed by this passage, it you know, there's got to be a reason somewhere. Could it be that also there's a sanctity to the seed? If you and these are situations where you could be unsure of your progeny.
Right. Well.
And no, they want they keep using the word pure and holy. They don't want you distracted by anything. If you're going to be in this role, you'd better be towing the line. So I'm wondering if that has something to do with the sanctity of this and also it dovetails into the sanctity of the land. Come to think of it. Because if blood is spilled on the ground or seed is spilled on, you have to bury it. So, who knows? Any other comments about that?
Marty, if we are not going to continue reading, I'm going to annoy someone now. Dawn, did you do your homework?
Which homework is that?
I gave you homework.
You mean sending you the references?
No, that's the homework today. But last time you were supposed to write a drash about, I don't recall what, but you were supposed to write a story that explains something that we don't understand. You can do it for this week as well.
I said I don't take assignments anymore since I graduated.
So now is a draft that you're going to present on Shabbat in the temple. So, no, but here is an interesting part that we don't really understand or we don't know who are the women that people can marry or cannot marry. Maybe we can have a story about that. And this is a homework for everyone. So, but you deserve it because you didn't do last time.
Rabbi, to defend Don, he did do a drash that we all commented on. Okay, he said this is his interpretation, and we all had different discussions. So in essence, Don did his homework.
Well, no. Just to annoy him. I don't think so.
She won't be an image, right? No.
What time? We have another 15 minutes. We can either, the subject shifts a little bit in what we would continue reading, and if it's okay, we can end a little early and open it for any other discussion about what we've just finished reading, or if there are any announcements or things like that. So barring anything, we'll have a little reprieve. You can have an earlier lunch.
Right.
So, Shabbat Shalom. Have a great weekend and also a great week ahead of us.
Be sure you look for that.